the biggest battle is the battle that goes on in here, inside, in your soul. And so like, that's always been something that's really important to me is figuring out what the battle is in here.
I'm Becky Brouwer, and I'm a Sendy Mom. Welcome to the Sendy Mom podcast. Well, welcome to the Sendy Mom podcast. I'm super excited to be here with my sister, Carrie Sybrowsky. So I'll tell you a little bit about her. She is my amazing and favorite sister, according to her. She was my best birthday present ever until my son came along, and all three of us share a birthday, which is super fun. And I totally love it. And Carrie and I always like to do something for our birthday together, which incidentally is going to happen a couple days before this podcast is going to come out, actually. So happy birthday to us. I'm the second of 12 children, and Carrie is the fifth. We've enjoyed growing up in a large family, and we all actually get along pretty well. So it's a good thing. We grew up in Twin Falls, Idaho, and are very proud Idahoans. Mm-hmm. And Carrie attended BYU Idaho, and then later went to BYU Provo and graduated in elementary education, and went on to teach for a little while and did tutoring and a few other things. Met and married Jacob Sybrowsky, and then had 5 children. 4 girls and 1 boy. She also got a master's of education at Utah State University, right? And so education has always been like a huge part of your life with you and Jacob. You both are
really like education.
Love education and educating children and adults and everyone. And so, which is awesome. And so like, besides being a teacher and professor and all those things, they have actually started their own nonprofit organization. It's called Hyde Park Academy, and it's dedicated to helping provide parents with support and tools as they seek to educate their children. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that, because that is kind of a Sendy activity to start a nonprofit organization. So, yeah, and you've done a lot of really good things. So that's pretty awesome. So first off, tell me what you think it means to be a Sendy mom, and maybe what kind of makes you a Sendy mom.
Oh, I've been thinking about this a lot, because at first whenever I think of Sendy mom, I've always thought like this big risk taker that goes and does like scary things, like I don't know why, like mountain biking or skydiving or all these things. But really for me, what a Sendy mom is like, for me, it's just doing hard things and like being resilient. And for me, the biggest battle is the battle that goes on in here and inside, in your soul. And so like, that's always been something that's really important to me is figuring out what the battle is in here, and then overcome some of my inner fears, or my just trying to become a better disciple of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, because that is kind of one of your ultimate goals, right? Yes. And you do a really good job of it. I remember Carrie when she was a teenager. You know, most people would have posters of like the boy band or whatever of the time. No, Carrie had posters of Jesus like on her walls. She had quotes, from young women everywhere. So it's always been a really important thing to you to be, to be a follower, and you're a good example of that. So
I did have New Kids on the Block on my.
Oh, you did? That's really funny. I said the boy band.
Yeah,
you were kind of normal.
Yeah, no, I was. I am. I still am very normal.
Yes. Well, and normal it's kind of an interesting word, right? Because none of us are really like, what is normal? There is no normal. Like
everyone has their own normal.
Exactly.
Really,
Yeah. We just we're just doing the best we can. And I like what you said about like overcoming fears that are within yourself, because that's anything. Like, I mean, whether you're conquering a mountain or you're you're building a business and you have no idea where it's going to, it can be very overwhelming, but also very rewarding. Or even just having children.
Oh,
and
yeah.
raising children.
I think that's probably one of the most Sendy things that any person can do is having a child. So,
and if we knew, like, okay, when you're going in the trenches, like there have been times when I'm like, why did I even do this? Like my kids don't like me. I am not happy. I'm not finding joy in motherhood. And why am I doing this? But then you get onto the other side of it. Like every once in a while, you'll have those little moments where I am so happy to be a mother. And like, it brings you so much of the opposite, like just joy that that it's still good. Like,
well, it makes me think of actually the Declaration of Independence says the pursuit of happiness. I think motherhood is that same thing, is that you're constantly in pursuit of that joy that God promises that motherhood can be.
Right.
And so it's just, I think we just keep getting up and keep trying. Like mom was always such a good example to me, because she would always say, you just get up and you try again. And she, the sun always comes up, and that just, for me, that's always brought me just a lot of like peace when I go to bed upset or whatever. And then I'm just like, you know what, I can try again tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I remember that too. And maybe that's part of, why we've been able to be so resilient, because our mom was really good at reminding us that, hey, you're going to have another chance at this.
Yep.
So
yeah, mom was really good at that.
Yeah.
She still is.
She is. So when you were talking about the pursuit of happiness, it reminded me of something a friend of mine said to me recently. She had gotten it from a book. I'm thinking it's a book by Steve Young. I'm going to have to ask her, and maybe I'll put it in the show notes if I can find it. He talks about being pursued by happiness, thinking of it in that way instead of always like chasing after it. Actually thinking of being on a train, and you're taking it with you, and you're the engine that's taking that joy with you everywhere you go.
That's so beautiful.
And I love that imagery. I'm like, I need to like think of it more in that way, because I used to think it the same way, like, I'm just going to keep trying, and I'm going to get there. I'm going to get that joy. So just keep trying.
That is really a beautiful thought, though, just because I think that there really is happiness and joy all around when, as a mother and things, you just have to sometimes have a little mental shift. Oh, this is a happy moment. And someone once told me, like, taking a snapshot and looking, like, just snapshot images all the time of what's happening in your home. And then just looking at that snapshot and saying what's going right.
Yeah. I love that.
So that's actually really helped me as a mom, just as a human, really just say, okay, what are the things that are going right in this moment?
Right. Yeah.
And even if it's just, I'm breathing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still standing up.
Well, and you do that with your children too. You look for the good, even if there's like nothing good that you can find, you can, you can tell them they're breathing well or something.
That's true. You are a good breather.
Exactly. So, because we need to look for the positive, it doesn't do any good to like find all of the negative things that are surrounding us, because there's plenty of that, but there's also plenty of good and positive things.
So much good.
So
there's more good than bad, I think.
I think there is too. Yeah. That's, it's what you choose to spend your time focusing on. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really good. So, tell me then a little bit about what it was like for you. You're kind of, I'm a middle child technically, but I feel like, our family was, oldest children, middle children, and children. And you're kind of that middle.
I'm in the middle third. That's what I always tell people.
So tell me what it was like growing up there.
I loved it. I got to be a part of the older kids in some way, and then I got to really be a part of the middle kids. But then because I got married later, I got to be part of the younger kids too.
Yeah.
And so I loved it. And I also feel like I got to see mom and dad grow as parents and just change because as a parent, you're not the same parent as you were for your older kids as you are for your younger kids. And so I feel like I got to see more that change, and given me a lot of hope because I think mom and dad
perspective.
are really great parents. And
Yeah, well, and that's a progression, right? And
Yeah.
it was interesting talking to Emily, who is the bottom part of the family,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was almost like she grew up in a different family
Yeah.
than I did,
Yeah.
you know? And because as I was talking to her, it's like, I don't remember mom ever sitting down with me and doing like homework or anything
Sure.
like that. She had no time for it,
Right.
you know? And, you know, or having like deep conversations or things like that. I just
Yeah.
didn't get that because she had no time. It was no time.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you were able to kind of witness that. And don't we all go through that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why it's given me so much hope, because I just continually mess up with my older kids. And I think, well, again, I get to get up and try again. And if I just keep trying, I'm going to get better at it. And, you know,
that's what Sendy is like, not giving up, right? Learning how to pivot or how to change.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
And being able to, I think one of the hardest things to do just in general is learning to let go. And so like letting go of this outcome that you have in your mind of like, even, okay, this is what I think a good mom should be, or this is what a good person should be, or this is what a,
good child
is supposed to be, a good sister. And being able to let go of that, but just being able to, I don't know, maybe trust the process more and just, I'm going to get there or whatever.
I think that's really important too, that we are able to trust ourselves that yeah, we're going to make mistakes and that's okay. And then, and it doesn't ruin the relationship that we have with other people too.
And if you think about it, like the outcome is already kind of like the possible outcomes are already in existence. It's really about the process and like the choices that we make.
Yeah.
That's what changes us and helps us to become who we're supposed to become.
Yeah. So. Okay. So tell me a little bit about, let's go like to your school age and things like that. What are some of the things that you tried?
Once I got out of junior high, then I moved into more music.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of music. And so
Carrie has a beautiful voice.
Not as much anymore. And then Emily's really good at singing. And so I was like, yeah, I'll figure something out for myself.
Well, let's talk about that process then, like of kind of figuring out what was your, that you wanted to really pursue.
I think the thing that I love the most is I really believe in people, and I want to help them understand like who they really are and then help them like grow and develop. And I think that's where education comes in. And when I say education, it's not just like getting smarter, but it's educating the whole child. And that encompasses more than just book smarts. It's like I'm taking care of my body and I'm learning how to take care of my body and I'm learning how to take care of my spirit and, the mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all those things that we're learning socially,
Yeah. So how do you teach all of that? I mean, you've started kind of your own school. How is that different than what you can get like at a public school or charter school even, or?
Well, that's the thing. I think that you can get parts of it at a public school and a charter school and a private, whatever education system that you want to use, you can, like, as the parent, you are the one who decides who is helping your child.
Sure.
And so, like right now, my kids all go to public school and we've done homeschool before, and they've done a private school and we've done a charter school and we've done a co-op, and all those things helped with certain areas of my children's education. And then we do other things, like maybe I'll sign them up, like my daughter does ballet, and then they have to read books, or we just do different things and we set goals with them so that they can develop, and piano lessons. You just kind of work with them and figure out what do you want to do, and
because you're always trying to find what lights their fire. Like for me, I want my children to just want to work hard at something. And I don't generally care what it is unless it's like a drug dealer or something like that.
I know, right? We do have limitations.
Yes, exactly.
Limitations.
Some expectations.
Yeah. Well, even like we just recently set this. I just noticed that my kids weren't like, it just felt like they weren't rising to the occasion and being the best that they possibly could.
Reaching their potential. Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I think part of it is because I'm not setting a great expectation in my home. And so we set a new, I call it raising the bar of the family. So we set a new standard in our house, and we focus on spiritual, physical, intellectual, and social skills. And so I make sure that every day they have to do something in
every
each
day
quadrant.
Okay, so what are some of the things that they do, or do you set out those things, or do they choose?
No, like I decided that in our family, the bare minimum is like you do something physical for 15 minutes. I don't care what it is.
Okay.
Something physical. You read a book every day. And sometimes they get to choose, and sometimes mom gets to choose, and dad gets to choose. And then social, they just have to do something kind for someone else. And then, what's the last one? Physical, that they have to do something in the scriptures and pray every day. Well, and really, like, I think it's a good just a good bare minimum expectation. Like, this is how to be a good human, and this is how you'll find balance. So I'm going to teach you how to have balance in your life. And then I felt like if I could help them reach that, then maybe they would start to like take off from there. So I just felt like I needed to create a better launching pad.
So is that what Hyde Park Academy is? Is it just so you can stretch your children? Is it supplementary?
It's anything, really. I mean, it's because it's home centered and school and curriculum supported. So basically what that means is that you start the education of a child starts in the home. And where you decide to send your children for whatever education, it should be an outstretching of you. The ultimate goal then is to be able to provide like tomorrow I'm recording videos on how to teach your child. And so it'll focus on like, here's how children learn. And now based off of how they learn, this is how you can structure the daily learning experience, or and even if you're homeschooling, this is how you can structure a lesson. Or if you're doing church study, so come follow me, then this is how you can structure that in a very easy way. And then so we teach parents how to teach, and then we also were working we've been writing curriculum, and we've helped BYU. So we also want to be able to point parents to great literature. Yeah, but there is a place though for boredom. You know, I think they need a moment to be. Maybe that's what, I don't know. There's just a lot of literature that I've read that talks about the benefits of boredom in helping kids to be creative. So that's the thing, is like all of this is just a balance, right? Because you're like, well, I don't want them to be overly bored, but then they need to have some boredom, or they just need some downtime. Or if we keep them so busy, then we're crazy, and then they don't have any time to just be. I should stop talking because like I do not have this figured out.
Okay, I am sorry to interrupt. And maybe this is totally unprofessional, but I have to tell you, this interview, I am so mad because my microphone midway through made me sound like a robot. And I found out that somebody sold me a fake microphone. Is that so rude? So I'm going to have to probably find another one. Anyway, I am so sorry because I really wanted this interview to turn out really good. And most of it is. So we're only missing about 10 minutes of it. And I just wanted to give you a brief understanding of what Carrie's talking about in this next little section. So we kind of talked about boredom and children needing to be bored. And then we kind of went into, well, what are some of the things that you do to help your children to take some responsibility for doing some of the chores around the house and things like that. And so she talked a little bit about trying sticker charts and having a little fuzzy in a jar every time they did something good. And finally realizing that that was way too much stress for her to have to deal with, which I totally agree. And finally realizing all she needed to do was to say, as soon as you are done with these chores that I've given to you, you can do XYZ. You can go to a friend's house. You can go to the movies. You can watch this movie with us. You can do all these different things after you're done. And that puts the responsibility upon the child rather than on the parent. So I just wanted to help you to understand where we were going with this conversation before I just jump into it. And I'm so sorry, Carrie, that the editing of this has been kind of tough. So I will try to get a new microphone and hopefully this is all going to work out.
Yeah. And that's all part of the education. And I came to that point too, probably about the same time of parenting or whatever, when I realized I'm done with the sticker charts.
Oh yeah.
They just, or M&Ms or whatever, you do. And when they'd ask me, oh, can I go over to this friend's house or whatever? I'd just say, yeah, I would love for you to go over there. Yeah. Have you done this, and this? No, not yet. Okay, well, as soon as you're done with those things, you are welcome to go over to your friend's house. And that's so much easier.
It's so much easier and so much less stress.
Yes.
Because it's super, like, it is so stressful trying to manage. Because then, not only that, but I got so tired of like managing prizes and then having my kids come up to me and say, well, now I get my prize, right?
And you owe me this. We stopped doing allowances too, because I was tired of them telling me I owed them money.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, why don't you pay me for rent and pay me for groceries and do all this or whatever? And they're like, yeah, we don't want to do all that. Like, then we're done with allowances. You just, you go, if you want extra money, I can give you some chores to do that will earn you some extra money, but they're extra chores.
Exactly.
The stuff that we expect of you all the time.
Hello, we're about halfway through the podcast. I want to remind you that this podcast is also on our YouTube channel at Sendy Mom. You can also find our website at sendymom.com and on Instagram at sendy.mom. Please subscribe, review, and share this episode with people you think might need this message. It really helps me a lot. Carrie loves her church, if you can't tell, and she's asked me to spotlight some of the founding moms of the church, Emma Smith, Mary Fielding Smith, or Lucy Mack Smith. They all certainly had to do things for their children and husband to support them with little recognition, and sometimes they were really ridiculed for the choices they made. I am excited to research a little more about Emma Smith. I am pretty certain I won't do her justice, so please be kind. There's just too much information for me to do a full report, but I'm going to do my best for next week. You are going to love my interview with Hazel Mason. She is an expert in her field of addiction recovery. Her story of hope and tools for finding control would be helpful to anyone who needs to feel more peace and love in their lives and more freedom. That episode is going to come out on March 31st. I'm super excited. I want to invite you all to the very first Sendy Mom Tea Party. I am hoping to put one of these together every month, and we'll see how that goes. The first one is going to be at my home in Highland, Utah. I'd love anyone to join. It's just a place to catch up, have some conversations, and meet new friends. I'll have a selection of my favorite herbal teas, and I might pop some Aussie scones in the oven too. Bring your beverage of choice if you don't want tea or water, and you're welcome to bring any other food item or nothing at all, and just come and hang out with us. So the first tea party is going to be on Saturday, April 12th at 9:00 a.m. Come and mingle with us. Talking to people and meeting new friends is Sendy. The more you do it, the easier it will get. If you need my address, just DM me at sendy.mom on Instagram or on Facebook, and I will hear from you soon. Now back to my interview with Carrie Sybrowsky.
Well, let's go back to, 2020, like COVID, and just having a baby and, deciding to homeschool, and then boom.
Yeah.
Cancer.
Like I went in for a routine check and then they were removing a lump, and I'd had this done before, so I wasn't really that worried about it. But because it was COVID, like I knew that there was something there, but because I'd had them before, I said it's probably nothing, and I just kind of put it off because of that, and because it was COVID and it was hard to get in to see a doctor.
Right.
But eventually I met with a doctor, and I said, I've got this lump and I probably should get it checked. And so even then it still took time.
Yeah.
So finally, when I did get it removed, and then the doctor called me and she said it was cancer. And I was thinking about this on the way to your house.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if I called my husband or if I waited for him to get home.
Uh-huh.
But I just remembered that moment sitting in my room and her telling me, and I was like,
So you were alone.
I was alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was by myself. And it was hard and honest. And one of the questions that you were mentioned that you that you might ask was, what's a time when you were terrified or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I think there's been 2 times in my life where I've been completely terrified.
Yeah.
And one of them was when I couldn't find my son. And
yes, that is the scariest thing.
And it was really scary. I thought someone had taken him for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the second time was when it was cancer.
Yeah.
So honestly, for me, cancer was just, I have cancer, and it was just like this.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me at the time that it was almost like you had this big sign above your head, just like bright lights, neon lights, cancer.
Yeah,
because it was there all the time, thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, and I remember I kind of assumed that eventually the light would just go out, but like you always, like on all of your medical forms and stuff that you fill out, it asks you. And so like I always have to put that I had cancer. And so it's always there, but the light has diminished or dimmed, and stuff. And I don't think about it all the time anymore, but yeah. So, but honestly, the one time when I was truly terrified was I had to go in for an MRI right after she told me I had cancer. And that was terrifying because I felt completely alone.
Yeah.
Just, and that was my honestly, what terrified me the entire time was I was afraid of being alone. I didn't like Jacob being gone. I didn't like, I always wanted someone to go with me, to see any doctors. But this one I went by myself, but that is what you learn, or that's what I learned through this experience. And everyone who has had cancer is going to have a different outcome and a different story. But I hope that one of the things that I learned, and I hope that other people learn similar, or I know everyone learns a lesson, but what I learned was that I am never alone, ever. And that is a huge blessing, even if I can't see who's with me, Yeah. And so I also learned just how, like, I feel like God had been preparing me all along the way, and had given me guidance all throughout my life so that I'd be prepared for that moment. And so just, I realized more than any other time that God was on my team, and it wasn't me
trying to do it all on your own.
Yeah. Just that we were, he wanted to help me.
Yeah. So that, I know you've used that throughout your life. Like that's like your mantra really is, I'm never alone. Right.
Well, now it is for sure. And my desire has certainly become like, I know that I'm not alone. I know that God loves his children. And now I just guess I feel a desire to help other people
where you can,
Yeah.
where you have talents and abilities, which is clearly in teaching and in educating other people. And now I love that you have turned that into, educating other parents to be able to, do good things with their children, and to take what they have and be able to send it to their children. Because that is seriously our whole job here on earth, is to teach our children, and then they teach their children, then they teach our children. And the problem happens when the parent, goes away, decides not to teach the child, and lets the child just grow up on their own. They need to be guided.
Yes.
And so, I think, if people could take advantage of the resources that are available to them to be able to teach their children, then we wouldn't have a lot of the problems that we have today.
Well, we all know that we all have agency, but I think one of the problems that as parents, we just think they have agency, so we should just kind of let them do whatever. Choose. Yeah, and make the choice. And this is funny, but I remember as a kid, I would say, well, I have agency. And he's like, and I remember him saying a couple of times, yes, you can do it with a glad attitude, or you can do it being mad. And I was like,
it's your choice.
It's like, there's a decision. I was like, fine. But in reality, as parents, we have a responsibility to, with agency, it's coupled with responsibility. And I've just been reading this article about this very thing, that sometimes as parents, we can over give to our kids, or we maybe we feel guilty. And so what we'll end up doing is saying, I'll do a little bit more for them than I would, or allow a little bit more freedom, maybe than they're actually ready for. But we're doing it because we maybe feel guilty for something, whatever. But in the end, the problem is that as we allow more freedom than they are ready for, we're depleting from our own bucket. And so it actually is a detriment to the whole family, because they're not ready for that little bit of freedom. And it's taking away from ourselves and what we actually feel like we should be giving our children.
Wow. Okay. So can you give an example? Can you think of any example that would work?
Yeah. So, my own kids, I'll give one very specific example with one of my kids. She loves ballet a lot. And she was having a really hard time listening. The pretty much the one rule in our house is to listen to mom and do what she says.
That's a good rule.
It was for my 2-year-old son, and now it's really served me well for the rest of my kids.
What is the one rule?
One rule. Anyway, but it wasn't just that. It was that she was yelling at me, and just lots of
not treating
behavioral issues and things. And I was continuing to allow her to go to ballet. And I continued to use it, though, as a threat. Like, if you don't do this, then I'll just take you out of ballet, or I'll just. Yeah.
But you weren't really willing.
But I wasn't. I don't want to do it, because
she loved it.
She loved it, but in the end, it was killing me, because I'd take her to dance, and it was hard for our family too, because it was a sacrifice for me to make this effort to get her to dance so many times a week and whatever. Anyway, so finally there was this moment where I'd been praying really hard to know what to do about this. And it was a moment of, I love her, so I'm going to take her out of dance until we figure this out. And so I took her out of dance, and she was devastated. And I said, but I did it in a way that I think she understood that it was.
Okay. So what were the words that?
Oh, I don't remember, but I just honestly.
But that's how you felt.
I felt
I'm doing this because I love you.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a reset here.
Yes.
That's really what it was.
Yeah.
I actually really love that, because I think that sometimes we do need to have a reset. If things are just like, if you're unhappy, if you feel completely unbalanced, then you've got to just stop everything and kind of have a reset and start over again.
So ultimately what I realized was she wasn't ready for this opportunity, this responsibility of being in ballet, because she hadn't developed these certain other skills
like discipline and
that would help her. And ultimately those skills that she needed to learn in our home, and some of the other things that she needed to learn in our home, would ultimately help her be more successful in ballet.
Yeah.
And so
so it wasn't mean at all.
No, it was honestly,
and she didn't feel
and
that.
I was very prayerful about it. She was really upset. But I think she could feel that I just said, look, I love you so much. And this is not working for our family right now. And there's something going on, and we need to solve this. And then we can revisit ballet later. And so we did. And it's been a huge blessing. And my other kids, there's other things too, where I've just learned, like my oldest, I probably gave her a lot of leeway in some areas that I've had to reel her back in, and it's really, we just think, well, I've already given them all this freedom and stuff. How can I reel them back in? But it's really not that hard. You just say, you know what? I am human, and I am always learning, and I have learned that this doesn't work. So we're going to try again. And then like you can take them back through and like reteach them all the stages and phases, and so that they can have all the tools that they need, right, to become adults and stuff. Even if you think about math, for example, if they've missed something, they're going to struggle in that area for a long time.
That's
right?
true.
Until you go back and you
learn the basics,
learn that skill that you didn't learn in math before. Well, it's the same thing in your emotional life or in social life or whatever. You have to learn these certain skills before you can progress. And so that's why it's okay to say, you know what? I'm sorry. We're going to take a break. We're going to have this reset where we're going to learn these certain skills so that you can continue to progress.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And they are becoming people. And it's not like you're making choice. It's not a control as much as it is a direction.
So there's just this balance, I think, ultimately, of the parent's responsibility and also the child's agency. Yeah. I've done a lot of reading too about agency, and just because for me, that's really important, like to allow the child to be to choose. And we want them to be able, but we also need to teach them. Yeah. And we want to win their hearts. Yeah. And because then they want to choose, right? Choose the right path. And so anyway,
that's a lot of responsibility.
There is a lot of responsibility to it, but it's possible. And especially like when they're very young, you develop that relationship with them that hey, I love you, and you're spending all this time with them, and but even if they're not young and you haven't done a great job, there's
still time.
We believe in repentance, and we believe in trying again. We believe that the sun comes up, right? Yeah. So you just get up and you just try again and just say, you know what, today I'm going to connect with my child heart to heart. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to look them in the eye, or I'm going to do this, because even those little things will open them up to start to want to learn. And then,
well, because then they feel safe. Yeah. They have a safe place to learn and to grow and to stretch. And eventually they understand that the stretching was important, even though it was hard. And when they become adults, they, like, some of my very best, like, memories are when my adult children have called and said, Mom, thank you so much for teaching me how to clean a bathroom. Yeah. Right? Totally. It's worth it to put that effort into it, but it's hard during the time. So, but you just have to teach them to make good choices.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to, I think, teaching them principles.
Yes. Yeah.
And so this is actually one thing we've started to do is every Sunday we have a family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that I'm writing a curriculum for my family. It's called How to Be a Good Person.
I was curious.
So like I basically went through, well, what I did was I went through the scriptures and I found like, what does God say that we're supposed to teach our children? And so
Wow.
I
Can I get a copy of this?
Yeah. Yes.
Seriously, I'll put it on the website. People will love that.
So I went and I did that. And then I said, okay, now I want to create something that will teach all of these things and maybe some other things that I feel like are important. Right. Mm-hmm. So every month we have a new theme.
Okay.
And we'll just keep we'll keep rotating through it because there are principles that are large enough that there's little nuances throughout. So this month it's all about reverence. And reverence is like there's this primary song, reverence is more than just quietly sitting. Mm-hmm. And so every time I say, okay, we're talking about reverence this month, then they start singing that song and that's like my favorite primary song. But even now I'm like, guys, stop singing it. Anyway, but
they know.
Yeah, but there's so much more so like we talked about being prayerful and then we talked about modesty and how that is a part of being reverent, and, and that is actually in the list of things that we're supposed to teach our children that I found through the scriptures. Mm-hmm. Reverence is a big
interesting
part of that. So
I love that.
And then just things like being honest or, so every month they'll have a new theme. And
that's awesome. I love that's working for you.
That's what we do every Sunday is we'll just say, okay, here's what we're talking about.
It's okay. And that's the thing is like, you've been very deliberate about setting a time apart to actually teach your children something, that's important to you. And that's about, that's part of having values and then passing those values on to your children. If you don't do that, then they're going to find their own values and they're not going to be the ones that you want them to have. Right.
Well, and I think we used to be like, there's so many different values being taught in the world. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't, like you said, if you don't teach them your values, then they'll find them elsewhere.
That's right.
So you have to be very deliberate, very intentional, say, these are the things that are important. I found that for me, I was getting frustrated because I felt like they weren't, it's almost like, well, don't you know what I'm thinking? Like you're supposed to know this. You're supposed to know that you're supposed to sit quietly in this moment.
You have these expectations because this is what you've grown up with. But at some point you learned that.
Yeah.
And it was either somebody who intentionally told you or you looked around and you saw, oh, like everybody else is doing this. So this
I feel like we used to have that luxury where a lot of like our community felt very similar about similar expectations, right? For families or for children or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we have that same luxury necessarily. I think we're similar maybe, but even then, like I just haven't felt that we've had that same luxury. And so because of that, I've thought, well, then I need to make sure that I am finding the time that like I love history and I love teaching my children about our country's history. And so I'm going to make sure that
that's part of your values
that we teach. And
which I think is actually really important because we need to know where we came from to know who we are.
Right.
Right. And so understanding your ancestors is super important.
Which is July. That's what we talk about in July.
Oh, there you go. That's perfect. Yeah. And I'm hosting a book club tonight for our neighborhood, and we're reading Endurance. Ernest Shackleton.
Yeah, I read that. That's good.
Very good. And but I've been kind of pondering this because I just think it's amazing how closely knit they were, like how they were. It was so important to them to have everybody survive, and the kinds of things, horrible atrocities that they had to endure to be able to have everybody survive. And I thought to myself, would I have that kind of community? And then the way they came into these towns, and they paraded them through the city, and they gave them all this food, and they took care of them. And I just think, I don't know if our community is like as close anymore, where we have that kind of respect for each other and love so much that we're going to sacrifice so much to save another person, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think those stories are important so that we can see that this is humanity and this is real love. This is exactly what we are supposed to be doing now. And this is how much we are supposed to be loving each other. Taking care of each other.
I love that. And those types of, like, we're spending a month talking about the 2 great commandments as well. And so like just understanding what is important to you and then making sure that you pass that down, I think is because they're not just going to pick it up. They'll pick up some things, right? Because they'll see you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think about our dad. I think I learned to love to read the scriptures because I watched Dad every morning.
Yep.
I would sneak down and, the one light that's on in the house, and I'd see him reading the scriptures. And just that example alone, I was like, oh, I think that's important. So there's value to those types of things, and they'll pick up those types of things too. But
almost more, like, honestly, that is kind of almost more value, seeing somebody do something, what they're talking about, but then there can also be some intentional teaching.
Well, and I think a combination, really, I have to be what I expect them to be.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, we probably ought to move on so
Sorry.
we can. No, this is so great. Is there anything that I missed? Like,
all right. So my microphone was added again. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a recap of what we were talking about. So I asked Carrie about her, some of her future goals that she had and something that kind of terrified her. And she said she wants to learn to be a better leader. And then I started asking her some rapid fire questions. So my first question is always, what has brought you joy in the last 24 hours? So she told me about her girls that decided they wanted to make cookies for their neighbors and deliver them. And they had seen an article about it in the church magazine, and they thought that sounded really fun. So, and Carrie usually doesn't feel good about making a complete disaster of her kitchen, but she helped her girls to do that. And her daughter, Ruth, said to her, "Oh, this makes me feel so happy." And that brought her a lot of joy. She says she does not have any TV shows or documentaries that she ever watches because she falls asleep within the first 5 minutes. So she really can't watch anything. So the charity that she supports is pretty much anything education. She's very involved with Hyde Park Academy right now, but they do support some universities. The book that she recommended is called How to Raise an Adult. It's by Julie Lythcott-Hames. And it sounds really interesting. She says I think she's a counselor for a university, and she just sees so many kids who are coming really ill prepared for college in a lot of emotional and social sorts of ways. And so she talks about how to raise your kids so that they can be prepared. It seems like it's written for toddlers through the childhood period, even for young adults, but especially for teenagers, how to help them to be better prepared. Carrie says she also talks a lot about helicopter parenting outside the home, but how kids are given a lot more freedom inside the home as far as like given access to their smart devices, to technology. And we thought it was a really shocking discovery that she made that social media actually could cause anxiety in kids. That is so crazy, isn't it? And then this next section that it seems to be working just fine, I asked her, what is your favorite place to vacation?
I think we don't go on vacation as much as we would like. every summer we go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and that's fun. I think my favorite vacation spots ever, Switzerland and Australia. Both places you've lived.
I know, both my favorite. Is there anywhere you'd like to go?
Well, hands down, Switzerland is one of the most beautiful places
It really
in the
is.
world. And so I would go there again. But yeah, and Australia, I think it's just always a fascinating place. And we would go when it was cold here. So it was nice to go when it's warm.
Both favorite places. I would go back in a heartbeat to either one of them.
But what I'd really love, a place I'd really love to see is like Norway. Just family history, totally amazing.
Yeah,
too. That's
Norway
another favorite vacation.
Cool. Maybe we should do a Norway trip with all the siblings.
Yeah,
and stuff.
just like we don't know that much about that side of our family, but I just think it'd be interesting. And I've never been to that part of Europe.
Yeah, neither have I. That would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so name one thing that you try to do every day.
Well, there are things that I do every day, and then there's things that I try to do every day. So the thing that I'm trying to do would definitely be connecting with my kids heart to heart every day. Probably.
I like that.
One thing I used to try to do was give them an 8-second hug.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that before too.
And that was nice.
That is really nice. Well, what do you think I should try next?
Probably the hardest thing, I think, for any human being is the skill of learning to let go. So that's what I would say. Find something you need to let go of.
That is a very hard skill. You know me, Carrie, too well. I can't let go of anything. Like I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that would be good. Yes, I should try that.
No, and it doesn't have to necessarily be something like that, but even like something that you like emotionally too. Yeah. Am I holding on to something that is not allowing me to progress?
Okay. I went to a kinesiologist, and I know you've been to a kinesiologist before, and it actually is kind of amazing because that's exactly what he was able to do with a couple of things that I've been carrying with me for a long time that were serving me, that helped me to grow and to learn and stuff that I really needed to let go of. And through a lot of, manipulation, I don't know, touch, touch points, whatever they do, was able to kind of just, I don't know, it felt like he was untangling stuff.
Yeah.
And
so I went through a depression for a while, and when I went to see a chiropractor, that was one thing that he helped me do, was like I felt like I'd already kind of let it go and stuff, but through that he also just
helped you to unravel it,
and let it go.
I don't know. I feel better.
Yeah, totally.
So
there was, because like when he was done with the one emotional release, I felt so much love and just joy and like free, like totally free. And this was a long time ago, and I remember I think it was Elizabeth that was sitting in the back as a baby. And she was crying, and I just felt so much love, and instead of like being frustrated, oh, it's okay, or being like, oh, I stop crying, or just being whatever,
suddenly feeling empathetic towards her.
Just like, oh man, this is really hard for her.
And being able to see her as a person. But that's kind of what he's done to kind of help me too, is just to be able to see other people, which I love. I want to be able to see people more deeply, and to be able to understand what they're going through. It's the whole, Ernest Shackleton too, I want to be able to love people that much that I would like cross an Arctic Ocean for 4 months and get somewhere where I finally can take a bath and then go back.
I know.
4 times.
Yes. Right.
To go back and
He's
get them.
Incredible. And it just seems like we've maybe lost that vision of humanity.
Yeah.
And because in some ways I think we're so focused on like being successful or making enough money or doing this, and so we kind of forgotten about like our real purpose is the people around us,
Yeah.
and like helping each other.
I remember reading about that at one point, that like it used to be that you would like the schools were there to teach those virtues. And that's what they taught. They taught from the Bible. They taught about being virtuous. You look at the old kind of readers and things like that. It was all about, how to be a better person. But now we've kind of gotten away from teaching those virtues in the home too.
I remember as a school teacher, one of my students' parents came and was crying because she said, "You spend more time with my daughter and I don't know what to do. Like, she's got all these problems." And here I am, like 23 or 24. I think I'm 24.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
this shouldn't be my job.
This is not my job. And we've schools have taken and parents have freely given the responsibility over because they're like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. Or for whatever reason, we just have kind of lost that. And so that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
As I watch my kids, is that I'm not as concerned about them going to this school or getting this grade or this grade. I'm concerned about who they are and who they're becoming.
Yeah.
And are they making those kinds of choices, the kinds of choices on their own without me?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because they want to. And how are they treating their siblings?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The virtues, teaching those virtues. And I love that that's what you're trying to bring back into the home, bring those things back into the home. So, yeah. Well, good. Thank you very much. So, Carrie.
Too much.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. It has been really fun. Thank you for being with me today and being my awesome sister. And we're going to have a birthday here soon together.
I'm excited to plan something.
So hopefully go hiking. That's what we love to do. We both love hiking. So, thank you for being with us on Sendy Mom today, and hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
See ya. Bye.
In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, do something every day that scares you.